Kerry, when the Prime Minister heads back after Anzac Day, it's only a couple of weeks then to the budget. It's all about economic management now for the government as they try to solidify their position within, the polls show their primary in the low 30s still.
Yeah, well, and we're seeing the commentary from particularly the Treasurer about that he's keeping his fingers crossed for another surplus, but because of the deteriorating position worldwide in terms of our trade, Treasury are actually kind of almost advising him not to put too high hopes on it. So I think it's going to be an interesting budget because, we heard that there wasn't going to be a lot of cost of living a few weeks ago. Clearly, the polls, I think, are spooking the government because they're not getting any great traction on some of their other announcements. So what they're looking for is a budget which will address some of those cost of living difficulties, particularly I would suspect something around energy. People are really, really hurting with their electricity bills, with their gas bills. And, the government did promise that they would be coming down in the term of this government, but of course they haven't. So I'll be intrigued to see what sort of cost of living adjustments they're going to make, because the problem for the Treasurer is that you've actually got to balance the cost of living incentives, whatever they are, with that boogie, not increasing inflation. So a very delicate balancing act for Treasurer Chalmers, and I think we'll all be watching with great interest on the night how he actually does it.
Indeed, that is a huge risk still, if you look not just in Australia but worldwide, that sticky inflation. Bruce, I wonder what you think. I spoke to Richo earlier in the program, and he's saying that some of the analysis on the polling is overdoing it, that historically the government's actually in a pretty good position mid-term. What's your read?
That's largely my read too, although I wouldn't be Pollyanna-ish about it by any stretch of the imagination. They continue to have a margin over the opposition. They still look credible on so many fronts, particularly the defence initiatives that they've brought out in recent days and months. As we all know, the big issue, though, is going to be how people's personal economies are at the day when they go to the election. And if interest rates are coming down, if inflation is dropping for the government, as we've been saying for a long time now, that I think will translate into generally good news for them. If it remains stubbornly high, as it continues to do so here and particularly in places where we're trading, the United States, for example, then that becomes a much more challenging election for the government. But yeah, I don't look at these polls and think, oh my God, we're in free fall, or they've just completely lost track with the electorate. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they're working on these initiatives, and those won't actually see a big impact in people's pay packets for a little while yet. But when they do, I think that'll be important, including the tax changes that the government initiated earlier this year. But most importantly, if they can bring down inflation and interest rates, that is the big test. And as you and Kerry have both commented, this is going to be a very challenging budget to make sure that the twin evils of high inflation and cost of living issues are being dealt with, and that is a big challenge for any government. And I think everybody would be wanting to see the government do it right, because it has such a big impact on the lives of ordinary Australians right across the board.